I'd like to have a discussion with you. Lenin's Houdini has allowed an awful lot that has gone on for real in broad daylight to masquerade as just being Hollywood. One of the sickest and most savage of examples of this is when Peter Gabriel and Martin Scorsese made Last Temptation of Christ while threatening to blow up with a nuclear bomb the Tacoma Dome if I did not allow them to poison me for the black executive Obama in a long ordeal of sexualization, which involved a Japanese invasion of a Pittsburgh public school with the help of the union, the teachers' union, in a holy war operation masquerading as defense against child abuse, when in reality it was a child trafficking syndicate taking hostages in a campaign of genocide. Let's talk just a little about the stakes. In the 1950s, the Legion of Decency sort that produced J. Edgar Hoover had a television commercial that had a woman walking alone on a sidewalk with a baby stroller, and it said, "Don't even think about sex." J. Edgar Hoover made secret tapes of Martin Luther King, and many people believed that was the issue, not his infidelities. Well, at Yoko Ono with the Carousel Club and the Neva Pornographic Corporation, and she is allowed under the umbrella of Lenin's Houdini by Carnegie Mellon University police forces to use me in child pornography hostage-taking bondage situations where they attempted to murder me repeatedly, Manson ordeals, and then genocide pornography as a demonstration project of the U.S. military on Mount Desert Island. Now, all those things are true. We know those things are true. You will say we don't know that Lenin's Houdini is true, but we do know that Lenin's Houdini is true. I was at the University of Pittsburgh long enough that I understand Donald Trump's mindset and the way that he controls administration in this strange zone of Tacoma. In short, the U.S. military sees genocide as the ultimate orgasm towards which all things are built in their domain, in their dominion. In other words, genocide is not only a thing that is good, it is a thing to be craved, to be sought, to plot out, to plan, to use biological and psychological warfare forces to achieve. They use names like Pompeii, the famous volcano that blew up, for Pompenus, under the shield of conviction. So we know that this was planned and symbolic warfare in which I was a humanist, and they used me for soundtrack. They locked me out of a church. We know that Midori Goto was party to this operation as a theater syndicate because Masako Shiono, when I was in third grade, was in a violin class with me. And that Fulton School graduation, she broke her G string. You know anything about Yoko Ono's favorite, Midori Goto, broke her G string at Tanglewood. And it was part of a Gurdjieff festival of the senses with the rib out crowd at Pennsylvania hillbilly country. That still is ongoing. Yusu Endor came with Penis Gabriel. Let's talk a minute about Penis. Penis has a little-known Circus Raves poster, fold-out centerfold, of him dressed as the New York hooligan, holding two picks to his nose. Why? Moses noses roses. He knows pick. In Two Virgins, he knows pick. This is his idea of retribution package avenging Hiroshima for Yoko Ono that was put together with the help of Brian Eno and Vladimir Putin. And they murdered JFK and then uploaded the horrifying Hamas genocidalist Yusu Endur. Absolutely horrifying. Black psychology amounts to torturing somebody into saying, I don't care, I don't care. And then saying, see, he's breaking contact with us. And it's a hired murderer, a hired killer. Barack Obama masquerading as a philosopher. That's all it is. That's the only thing they offered as so-called panacea to the murderous holy war, mass murder, genocide. That's the only thing they offered. And they play it as a man Bowie's will. Let's talk about David Bowie. He was the morale agent of the genocide quorum. He banged the gong of the show business crowd behind it. DD, like DD Mancine, and the DD found in the Ark of Colors card with the Russian agents from 1974 here in Tacoma, was the Diamond Dogs. And it was supposedly just a record. But this ain't rock and roll, this is genocide, was literally a planning statement. And Bowie's mentality traces back to Gabriel D'Annunzio, who introduced D.W. Griffith to Mussolini. He was in on the whole soundtrack ordeal. He was in on my kidnapping. He was in on torturing me. He was in on using rock music as a brainwashing instrument and neurohypnotic. And Dee was signifying the code for killing Martin Luther King. He left him in King Crimson pool of blood, and they gassed me in King's estate. And this is the reality of the truth of the matter. David Bowie's mentality was the same as D'Annunzio. He says, live till your rebirth and do what you will. That was D'Annunzio's mentality. He believed in living till your rebirth and doing what you will. So when you look at the situation at CMU, you have a mayhem artist named Todd Kaufman from the Society of Military Engineers. They basically work it out with the Russians. Will shoot under the Army Code of Justice of Don Toon anyone who looks at porno. And they gurgle in the, taverns of acid rock with Megadeth. Don't give me a cure, give me a final solution. Posters on their walls under the shield of conviction that it's just rock and roll, but they like it, right? So when they execute people under the genocide of Michael Foucault, Yusu Endur initiates a Taliban squabble about the list of girls because he wants the black man to get Midori Goto. You should see this step and fetch it. Squall over Midori Goto's virginity. Oh, he was uncontrollable. He was gnashing at the carpets with his jaws. He was temper tantrum like, and Iman Bowie came down and anointed it as the sacred cause of Brother Africa. And they didn't warn anybody. There's one thing about these sandbaggers that you see online. Mourning and protesting Gaza and the climate change. They say the flotilla is a Black Panther food program and all this other stuff. It's just one thing to their credit. They didn't save a single human being's life, not one. They didn't save anybody. Okay? They lined up to mimic their masters on every single key point. They didn't save a single person. And what is more, is anybody who knew any of these worthless worthies from the 1980s knew and did not expect them ever to save a single human life. Nobody who in their right mind would believe that if you switched the power structure between waltz and tune, you would get a different scene. It's the last waltz of the U.S. as designed by the mass murderers of the Holy War Syndicate that includes Russia and includes black militarism in Africa. That's the simple truth of the matter. And what they say is when they surround their prey, you can imagine a scene where a woman you love is being surrounded by a gang who's going to rape her, right? They just switch it to a little boy, but they surround it and they tell everybody, back off, back off. And what do the people do? They back off. They're told, put down your iPhones or we'll start another germ contest. And the people behind this paparazzi of losers that you get, like weaponized news and moats and breakthrough news and stuff like that, are actually Cohen and Kaplan and Schulman, the people robbing the museums, destroying our culture, the people promoting Yusu Andur, and the TikTok machine that produced Caligula of the Watton makers for Pete Gabriel and Yoko Ono. So, I don't like being this Mobius person from The Matrix, because The Matrix was obviously just showing people a glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes in these quarters. But, if you look at the situation with the morality of the Sudan, for example, they have this, they're making it a fad to want to rescue the children of the Sudan. A lot of water has gone under the bridge since 1980 when the NAACP called my attempts to help Africa interfering, because they already had a rule staked out for me as to White who was being surrounded by the gang. And what's ironic about this situation is that black people who were not in the loop tried to save me. It was not really black people per se. It was representative faction of black people. And black education, black psychology has not gotten deep enough for black people to extricate themselves from the wrongdoing of their leadership. Somehow, King's campaign against segregation ends up allying the NAACP with Kamala Harris in what they would gladly say, Cory Booker would gladly call it the murder of the children of Gaza, Martin Luther King's genocide. I kid you not, and I do not lie. Hakeem Jeffries would say it was Martin Luther King's genocide with a straight face. People who come after me, gaslighting me at the lunch program, who want to rob my mother after killing my father for the Green Party and so forth, are people who have one of them, Mike Seed in Pittsburgh, which is like Seattle. The only person who ever crashed my scene at the Paid News was when I covered an art exhibit that he was a lover of George Romero's daughter. He has a big swastika. He's a huge man. He gladly picked on little Jimmy. You had some guy named Sugar Bear, named after the funeral parlor. 7-foot tall black man who threatened to kill me and had chased me into Donald Osros, who broke my sister's ribs and gave me 14 stitches. When I was a child, who used me for pedophile films in Butler, where Toon staged his Van Gogh. Like, they have name syndicates to suggest that they have some ace in the hole, like Corey. Corey was present when Brucker tried to murder me. When you look at the murderous machine of Pitt, what you see is nothing more than a military who sees gold in genocide. They can't wait to tear the gold from the teeth of the victims. That's what they are. They're orgiastic, and they see it as orgiastic. They say, come on, mama, we want to orgasm. We want to zap them right between the eyes. Zap. Happiness is a warm gun. This is their whole mentality in a nutshell, in a framework, and it comes from people like Yoko Ono and David Bowie and the University of Pittsburgh in cahoots with Ronald Reagan, Bush, Don Toon, who's obviously the face behind the face of all this stuff. Think about it. How did J. Edgar Hoover and Yoko Ono's fetish for Peep spy cam movies and moralism about, oh no, don't cheat on wifey, don't even think about sex, come down to pictures of presidents touching each other on their crotches, rumors of sex with children. It's a face behind the face. We're dealing with a society that has lost any interest in capacity for moral behavior as a measure of political fitness. Lost all capacity to measure. All we do is virtue signal. That's all. We don't have morality built into our pride. When I was kidnapped and tortured, it was because my grandparents were distinguished residents of Poplar Bluff. It was because my father was a decorated naval hero. That's why the Zionists from Attica State Prison went berserk with hatred. That's why they sent Mossad and the IDF and the ICE after me. That's why they mailed me letters of Gail Burson. That's why Penis Gabriel decided that he knew my pick would be Midori Goto and left me, in his view, holding the bag of a child Ripper Hatter who he brought on named Casper, like Casper Weinberger, the friendly ghost. Forgive John Lennon and forgive Hitler, and you will be united under the hell bat of wings. McCartney's God who always whispers in the ear of both sides.